Hello everyone, my name is Thomas, and today in this video we're going to be talking about the editing workspace within Adobe Premiere Pro. In this video we're going to be talking about some of the beginner elements that allow you to actually edit the appearance of your footage. To do this we're going to be going over the effects panel and the effects control panel, and what we're going to do is go through a lot of what these do, how to apply effects to your footage, and to control the strength of these effects and when they aren't applied. So without further ado, let's get started. So in the last video we were in the assembly workspace and we got all of our footage together on a timeline. Let's assume that I had a lot better footage, more cuts, and yada 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 yada. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to start to edit that footage, that way it actually looks physically different. So what we're going to do is we're going to head into this editing workspace at the very top. You'll see learning, assembly, editing, color. We're going to head into the editing workspace. And here we have a couple of different things. So we have our effects control panel. What this panel allows you to do is modify the very basic elements of your video. So you have a video section and you have an audio section and some controls for what each of those do. So from here we can modify the location. If we open up motion using this little drop down, what we can do is we can modify how left or how far right, up and down. We can revert if we use this little panel over here. We can adjust the scale, so if we want it larger or if we want it smaller. If we want a non-uniform scale, you'll uncheck this. So if you want to adjust the width separately from the height. We can rotate, we can adjust the rotate point. So right now it's set in the center, but say we want it to rotate around this point over here. What we can do is move it over and rotate from there. Here we have our opacity. Here you can just decide how opaque your footage you want it to be. 0 is completely transparent. You'll see this checkerboard pattern. Here you can adjust the blend mode. Whatever footage you have underneath, it'll modify. So you need 2 pieces of footage on top of each other. So if I were to do this and modify the blend mode, you have a color burn. And you can create some really interesting effects. Here's an overlay, a difference. And again, if you haven't seen the video on our website about blend modes, you can find that in our extra knowledge section. Here you have speed. For that, you'll actually need to change it. If you right click your footage and go to speed duration, you can adjust the speed, and that's where you'll actually change it. You have your level, which is just how loud your thing is. At 0 decibels, this is essentially a gain meter. So by adding or lowering decibels, you're raising or lowering the volume. I'll just reset this, and you'll see that when I adjusted the level, you see that I had a little bar come up, and this thing is now blue. What that is a keyframe. Now, a keyframe is just a parameter that says at this point I want this setting. So here at this point, you'll see that I have this little marker, and it says at this point in time, I want 0 decibels of gain applied to my audio. If I move the marker over here and adjust the volume, it's saying at this point in time, frame 91, I want 12.9 decibels of gain added to my audio. So what it will do automatically is between this point where we have 0 gain, a little further, this point we have 0 gain, and at this point we have 12.9 gain. What it'll do is it'll interpolate between the two. So from here to here, it'll ramp up the gain. So that way, at this point it's 0, but when it gets to this point, it'll be at 12.9. And this is how you'll adjust settings on the fly with Premiere. Now here I have a situation where you have a change in volume, but you want to maintain a certain decibel level. So here I have it to where it's at -30, -35 at the first keyframe, -33.5 at the first keyframe. It then ramps up to 0 decibels, and then it ramps up to 12.9 at the end. Now what it's do is it's ramping up from here to here, and then ramping up even more from here to here. But if I say want to keep a steady volume level from here to here, what I'll need to do is set a keyframe using this button. What you'll do is you'll have to click this keyframe, and you can add or remove them by clicking. But what you'll do is you'll manually add a keyframe and then adjust the volume to where you want. So in this case, I want 0 because I want it to ramp up from -30, -33. I want it to ramp up to 0, maintain 0 from this point to this point, and then ramp up from 0 to 12.9 from here to here. And this is how you'll do it. So, decibel reading, what you'll do is you'll see it'll ramp up to 0. It'll maintain 0 all the way through here, and then it'll ramp up to 12.9. And that's exactly what we wanted. I use this basically every time I add text, whenever I add text fade in, especially for these tutorials. What I'll do is I'll add a text. The desert. I don't know. This is just whatever you need it to be. So what I'll do is I'll select the text, and in this panel we'll have a new category. We'll have graphics. And from here, this is where you'll be able to modify the text. So if I click down on this drop-down menu next to text, you can see I can turn on or off the effect. And here's where I have all my settings for the text. So I can change the font, and it works the same way as any other video editor. You need to have everything selected, or whatever you need selected. We'll go with Gotham Bold, because that's what I use for these tutorials. We'll go with italics. This is the font size. So we have desert in the desert. You can make that bigger or smaller. You have your alignments, your justifications, and you can have it where it top aligns, center aligns, or bottom aligns. So you can see here I have it top align. Here it aligns in the center, and so whenever I type desert in the desert for a desert, it's hard to see because this isn't a very big box, but it'll just take the distance from the top of the text box, the middle of the text box, and the bottom of the text box, and move it up or down. If our bottom align, of course. Here we have our tracking. This determines the width between each letter. Again, have to have everything selected. This is the width between each letter. You have VA, which is only if there's a... this is actually one that you don't select everything. This is the distance between a singular, or between two letters rather. So if I bump that up, see that everything after that is moved. You have your leading, which is if I have multiple lines. What I'll do is it'll increase the space between the two. Then you have your baseline shift, and what this does is just like an offset. So this can actually exceed your text box. So you'll see if I move this up, I can have it to where it's not even in the text box anymore. But what you can do is basically shift your baseline. This is so this doesn't actually mean the text box is any larger or smaller. I still have to click within the text box to click these words and add more words. So add more words. You can see that even though there is technically space on screen, the text box is limited in size. What this allows you to do is change the size. Basically, you can condense the letters, but only to a finite amount. So that's basically as much as you can squish them, and it works differently from different fonts. Here we can create a faux bold, so it'll bold it out. You can create extra italics. We can have an all caps. We have an all caps, but it keeps the difference in height between uppercase and lowercase letters. I actually like the way this looks quite a bit. You have your superscripts for things like x to the second power or something along those lines. You have your subscripts, that could be used for like a chemical formula. And then you have an underline. From here, we have our color options. And so what you can do is change your fill color. Say I want this to be, actually, no, let's not go with that. We'll go with a turquoise color. Go with this one. It's interesting that this color picker is upside down from the one in Photoshop, but we'll work with it anyways. So we have our now blue text. It doesn't look amazing, but we won't worry about that here. You'll actually have to check these off for what you want. Only fill is checked off automatically, but you can have a white stroke. So you can't see it, but it's there. If I bump up the stroke, you can see that we now have a white stroke around it. I don't know if it's pure white. It is pure white. It looks kind of dark from here, but we do have a stroke here. You can change the background. This is just the background of the text box. So if I want it to be completely transparent and say white, or we'll go with black actually, I can create a black text box. This I kind of want to be centered up, and we'll actually go for a middle line because I do want it. Here you can change the opacity as well as how far it extends outwards. So we can have it extend outside the text box a little bit. And then here we have a shadow, which will actually, we'll make this a white background to make it easier to see. If we add a shadow, you can see ever so slightly that a shadow has been added. Let me try and make this as big as possible. You can see that a shadow has been added to underneath. And here we have some settings, including the opacity, the angle, how much it spreads, how far away it spreads, how diffuse it is, and how big it is. Here we can have it be really, really large to where it's just gross. We can have, be really diffuse. You can see here we have a really crisp diffuse, and here it's completely blurred out. You almost can't see it. You can just kind of tell it's kind of smudged. Here we can have it to where it's really far away, like it doesn't even feel like it's on the same platform. Here we can see it's kind of floating a little bit. Maybe add a little diffusion. There we go, just a little bit. And you can also make it much more or less diffuse. If we want a really light diffuse or a really light shadow, or a really heavy one, like these are spotlights. And this actually doesn't look terrible. Maybe the background itself is a little unfitting, but the actual graphic itself looks quite nice. From here we can change the position. So if we want to move everything left or right, up or down, we can change the scale. We can change the rotation, opacity again, and that's all of the beginner text. Again, all of the keyframe stuff is exactly how it works with the other ones. If you change something and it doesn't keyframe it, if you don't see a little keyframe thing here, click this stopwatch. This enables animation, and from there you can set your parameters for that keyframe, change to a new keyframe, and set your parameters for there. If you want to get rid of all animation, just toggle animation again. You'll be prompted by this pop-up that says this action will delete keyframes. Do you want to continue? Press OK or cancel. I'm just going to press OK. And that's just about everything with the effects control panel that we'll go over. From there, we'll actually go to the effects panel. We'll actually just reset this. From here, you can right-click up here and go to reset saved layout. Here you might see that the layout is kind of changed. The effects control panel is just one over. We're on the source one, so that's for like reviewing footage. double click, you can review your footage here. We'll go back to the effects controls, and from here we'll actually scroll over to the effects panel. Now, I won't go over what all of these effects do. There's just way too many of them. Each one has their own subsection with quite a few subcategories. But I will just tell you how to apply these. So in this instance, we're going to apply a video effect to our footage. I'm going to unlock this layer. So we have our footage. Now there's a couple ways you can apply this. So say we wanted to distort, and we'll do a spherize. Now the two options you can use to apply this is you can either drag up into the effects control panel. You'll see that there's a blue line that appears. That's where you can add it. So here we have spherize now, and from here we can control our effect. Or if I use Control Z, now it's gone, I can drag it straight to the footage itself that I want to apply it to. You'll know it's applied when there's a line, or a red line, over on the timeline, and you'll see that we have spherize back over here again. From here we can control the effects. Again, if we want to apply automation, or animation I should say, we can do it up here. Here we can, it's hard to see with the text, but I will just hide that. And you'll see that we now have a sphere like bubble, sort of like a magnification. And if we play it, it's not a huge effect, but you can see that something is being affected, and it works for the entire footage. It almost looks like there's something underneath the ground moving. But from here you can move it left or right, up or down. It's the same controls that you've been working with on all of them. If you don't want to see your effect, what you can do is you can click on FX, and this will toggle the effect on or off, so you can see what the original looked like versus with the effect on. And all of these you can stack. So if, say, I want to put a noise and grain, just add noise, we can add it over. We can turn up the noise, make it black or white, and this is how you'll work with it. Again, turn it on or off, turn on the other ones, they stack, so if you want the sphere and the noise, you can do that. There are masks, but we'll go over that in a separate video, but that'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, you have a good one.